Alright, we're back. We're going to get back into this video again. Dealey Plaza, UK, Canterbury Conference. This is Brian Edwards, former policeman. I believe he's former military, and he's going into the JFK assassination in Dealey Plaza like an ambush, a military ambush, and then this is what he would do. Like I said, if you haven't listened to the previous videos, I did exactly the same thing. But before I even heard of this guy, before I even watched this video, I did exactly the same thing. What I would do, this is how I would set it up, and it's pretty similar to what he's saying here. We're both right on the money on this. And again, this is the Zapruder film showing JFK's car just turning from Houston onto Elm. Again, you can see his cover. Police officers are back here. Secret Service is way back here. And then you see this little girl in the Zapruder film. I'm going to emphasize this again. This little girl running along beside the car, waving at JFK. JFK's over here. He's got his arm up. He's waving and looking at the crowd here. And then all of a sudden, she stops because she hears the first shot. So she's running along, and then about right here, she stops. At the same time, you can see JFK arm goes down. He starts to look around because he hears the shot also. That means the first shot was fired and missed him. This is probably the one that bounced off the lamppost, bounced over and hit Tag, or bounced over into someplace else. And then when he gets about right here, he's shot through the throat, probably from the grassy knoll, because when he emerges from the Simmons Freeway sign, he has his arms up, grabbing his throat, and Jackie is grabbing one of his arms and looking at him, and all the agents are looking at, all the motorcycle cops are looking at him, Clint Hill's looking at him, all the other agents are looking backwards. So the first shot was to distract, to get everyone looking backwards, and then the other shot, the first real shot, came from the grassy knoll and hit JFK right in the throat, right there. Alright, so we'll keep going with his analysis.
Facing Houston Street. He's facing to the east. Well, as the motorcade turned and went down Elm Street, he's looking over his left shoulder. This is kind of hard to see, but he's looking over his left shoulder as the motorcade is under attack. But when the Warren Commission needed him to be the star witness, they placed him on the wall here. He was here. He was on this, on the other side of this. There's the concrete pillar. Then there's a little bit of this concrete section. But he was sitting facing this direction. The Warren Commission put him here. Anyway, they showed him this picture, and he says, "Yeah, that's me. You took this picture in July of '64, and I'm testifying the next day. Here's where I was at." And he says he saw somebody in this window pointing a rifle out the window, and he marked it as such. He put an A, and he put the letter A, and he circled it. That's where I saw the guy with the rifle. And then they asked him, "Did you see anybody else hanging out, looking out the windows?" He said, "Yeah, I saw two African American guys in the window here," and he made a B. He put the letter B as indicating that's where he saw these two gentlemen. Well, we all know that that's not right, because Tom Dillard took a picture of the assassination as it was taking place, and this is the sniper's nest, or the Patsy window, and here's Harold Norman and Bonnie Ray Williams. They're directly below. So Brennan's information is wrong. And the Warren Commission let that go. But anyway, that's not what.
And not saying that Brennan is in with the Warren Commission and the assassination, but it's not uncommon, a year later, to miss where things are at. I think it was here, I think it was there. So that wouldn't be uncommon. So I'm not on the side that Brennan's lying, and he's just possibly not remembering it correctly, because memory fades. Even after a couple of days, memory fades. So let's not be too harsh on Brennan there.
what we're talking about.
So here's what Here's what Brennan testified to. David Bellin asked him, "What kind of gun did you see in that window?" Brennan says it was some type of high-powered rifle. Well, first of all, let me stop you, Mr. Brennan. How do you know it was a high-powered rifle? It could have been a BB gun. How do you know? What's the difference between a high-powered rifle and a rifle? I don't know. It says, I did not observe a scope. Bellin asks, how much of the gun do you believe you saw? Brennan says, I calculate 70 to 85%. Now, why would you? That's a strange use of words. What would you say? Yeah, I saw it all the way up to the butt. I saw it up to the scope. 70 to 85% of the gun. Well, that gave me some fun because I took 75% of that rifle. Well, first of all, here's what Brennan supposedly saw something like this. The barrel sticking out the window. The only reason you stick that rifle out the window is you want to be seen. Otherwise, you'd be back in the shadows, and you're firing through the open window.
And there you go. I totally agree with that. That's the only reason that someone would have stuck that rifle out there, is for it to be heard and seen. Okay, so they can say, oh yeah, I saw a rifle with the scope. All the other rifles are going to be concealed, probably under some kind of tarp, covering the window, and they're going to be back in the shadows. That way you're not seen, and with silencers.
Only reason that rifle was pointed out that window was for somebody. It didn't matter if it was Brennan or Amos Ewens or Mary Smith or Joe Johnson or whatever. Somebody had to see somebody pointing that rifle out. Whether it's fired a bullet or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But Brennan says he saw 70 to 85% of the rifle. This is the Mannlicher Carcano, the 40.2 inch one that's in the evidence that the FBI says it was 40.2 inches overall length from butt to the tip of the barrel. 70% would be the blue line. That was, you see the scope, and then 85% is almost the entire length of the gun with the scope included. Brennan says, I didn't see a scope. Did he see it?
So, I'm a little confused why he would start the percentage from here, because this is the part that would be sticking out. So, if you take 75% of the rifle, you've got it to about the trigger from the window. Inward, you got the barrel, the stock, the scope, and then the trigger. I wonder why he would say that, and why he would set it up like that. Anyway.
See a different gun, or did he just not see it? I don't know. All right, the number 2 is the commanded firepower. This is my team. That's me behind the old bunker buster. That's me. I was the first one in, first one out. But commanded firepower. Everybody on our team had a Colt A2 9mm fully automatic rifle and a Sig Sauer 9mm 25 round capacity gun. We're going to overwhelm whoever's in that house or whatever we're hitting. Overwhelm them with audacity, speed, and firepower. That's what we did. Real world examples. This is the cache of weapons that Charles Whitman they found up on the top of the bell tower. He was ready for a war. And then this Stephen Paddock idiot, look at all these weapons this guy had. These aren't even all the pictures, but this is the weapon cache that this guy had. He was ready for a war. All right, number 3, cover. There's a difference between shooting.
Now going back here to Paddock just for a quick second here. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, think there were other people involved, but you got to wonder, Mr. Paddock, why would you need that many weapons? I mean, 20, 30, 40 weapons. Come on. And then why would you kill yourself? If you know the police are coming, why not just hammer the door? But obviously he shot himself before the police even got to the door. He had a camera, he could look down the hallway, he knew they were coming. If you're going to take out all those people and you got all those guns, why not just go out in a blaze of glory shooting the police? So something strange there. I don't know what it is. Why would you have that many weapons? how could you get that many weapons in and no one see? I've seen the videos where he's got them all in suitcases and stuff, and no one's really noticing. Hopefully nowadays they're checking people's bags as they come into the casinos, but it's very difficult because I've been in a lot of those casinos, and there's 10, 20 entrances, and there's really no way to control how people are getting into that building. The only thing they do have is, I think they have these card keys now that you wave that on the little pad inside the elevator, and then that'll take you to that floor. You can't get to that floor unless you have that key card. That's all I know. But the thing is, though, I was just, why would he do something like that? Who knows? Maybe he's mentally ill. Maybe he's dying of cancer. He obviously knew he was going to do it before. It wasn't just a sudden thing, because he had actually researched other concerts prior to that one. Maybe he just didn't like country music, I don't know. But also he sent money. He sent his girlfriend back to the Philippines and then wired her like $100,000 ahead of time. So he obviously set this up, pre-planned it ahead of time. Why would you want to do something like that? I don't know. Who knows? But that's a lot of guns, a lot of firepower. And again, why wouldn't you shoot it out with the police if you got that many guns? Why not put a bomb at the door? A claymore. You could easily make a claymore to face the door, and when the police came in, take them all out. If you're going to take out 50 people at a concert, what's the big deal at taking out the police? Anyway.
Cash that this guy had. He was ready for a war. All right, number 3, cover. There's a difference between shooting from behind cover and the shooting from behind concealment. Cover will protect you from return fire, a brick wall, a car engine, whatever. But concealment, that only offers you benefit of stealth and doesn't protect you from return fire. So whenever these guys were setting up, they were in a position where they had at least some cover and a lot of concealment. Principles of War is a great book about early 17th century war tactics. Karl von Clausewitz, and it says take advantage of concealment. Everybody that wrote a book about war tactics always used concealment as a key component. So we want to make sure that we have plenty of concealment. They can't find us, and then we have cover in case they do shoot back. And the last one is communications. How do we communicate the information, live updates of where our target's at? How do we do that? Well, we have to have a secure radio frequencies.
So what he's talking about there, if I was doing this is how I would do it. So let's see. We'll go back here to the main pictures. Hold on one second. And again, like I said, you've got fire team 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even a 5th one somewhere in here or over here. I'd have maybe command and control over here, or at least an observer, and then off back in here somewhere away from the area, I would have some kind of central command radio communication place, somewhere back in here, away from all that, because once they start searching buildings, they're going to find you. Okay, so if you have a lot of equipment, it's going to be hard to be moving that out. So you're going to want that back in here, deep back in here, somewhere that you don't have to move it until later, maybe later that night, maybe in a couple of days. You can just lock up the office and come back in a couple of days. Some place where the police are not going to have reason to be looking. Every place else around Dealey Plaza, you want mobile. You want to have the least amount of equipment as possible, and then you can take off with it. Okay? So again, maybe a little mobile radio station here, or relay station, observation station, another observation station here. These are good areas to see everything. You can see right into the kill zone. Matter of fact, let's see here. Hold on one second. Sometimes you can get alright, there's nothing. Yeah, so you can tell there's no public access. There's no little blue dots so people can go up there. But let's just say you're here. So you put it up here somewhere or up there somewhere. And since, being that it's a federal office building, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but all federal property can be used by any federal agency. So you could literally have a DEA, a CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, FBI office at the top of this post office. It wouldn't be unheard of, okay? And yeah, from right here, you know, say you go straight up, you've got a commanding view of Dealey Plaza. Yeah, wow. All right, so we'll keep going here.
We're not going to be using the police radio because, you know, everybody can hear it. Everybody's got a police radio, and from dispatch all the way down to the lowly patrolman way out in the middle of nowhere can hear it. And then civilians had, you know, probably had scanners. So we don't want to have a frequency that anybody can access. We want to have a secure government issued or probably a military frequency, and we have to have a communication base. We have to have it hidden. Well, where is that? Well, this is inside the Fair Park radio communication civil defense compound out in Fair Park, which is about 5 miles away. And here's an article in the paper in 1960. The Dallas City approved the mobilization of a project to build this underground communication bunker at Fair Park underground. Notice that it's underground and nobody can get to it except people who have clearance. And they can communicate in case of national emergency. Federal, state, and local radio communications are all controlled by this location. This guy is a player. Jack Crichton, who was in charge. He's a colonel in the United States military, who was in charge of the 488th Intelligence Unit of the local Army Reserve. Half of his guys are in the motorcade. He was in charge of this from the intelligence aspect in 1961. On the day of the assassination, Crichton, if you want to look up somebody that's pretty scary, look up Wikipedia. I know it's not the most accurate.
So what he's talking about is right here. And this is exactly what I just said. It's going to be off, away from any areas that would be searched by the police. Hold on one second. All right. Hold on one second. So here's Dealey Plaza. This goes through downtown. On the east side of Dallas is this thing called Fairplex. It's where they have like the state fair every year, or they used to. I don't know if they have it now. But inside Fairplex is a building. I don't know exactly where this building is at. I think it's on the north part here. And anyway, I don't know exactly where it's at, but there's a bunker building inside of Fairplex. They built back in the 60s for nuclear survival. So it would be like a FEMA rally communication area in case Dallas was hit by a nuclear weapon. They would at least have some kind of communication with the outside world. There would also be, you know, since it's underground, I've seen it. Actually, was looking at bunker complexes around the U.S., and this is the one that came up, and somebody has a really good schematics of it, and it had enough for about 100 people with food and water to last for about a month. And again, it'd be a rally communication place. Now, if you had people in the military, like I said, not everyone in the military is involved in the assassination plot. Not everyone in the government, the CIA, the FBI, the Secret Service is involved in the assassination plot. But you'd have like-minded right-wing members, okay, inside the military, inside the CIA, inside the FBI, inside every government agency. And actually, this would be an ideal rally point. So when all the teams, although I probably wouldn't do it like this in the beginning, but if they chose to rally everyone together to make sure everyone's accounted for, they could put them here. Put them in that complex, underground, safe, it'd be a safe house. I wouldn't do that. I'd put them in houses all over, all around Dallas, and then have them wait it out. A week, 2 weeks, and then slowly start, 1, 2 at a time, going out, putting them on buses, trains, cars, to get them to other cities. That's what I would do. Anyway, that's a good place, Fairplex, to have your central communications and rallying point, maybe even an underground bunker, safe house of some kind.
Accurate, but Wikipedia's got him as he's at a meeting at the Adolphus Hotel. Well, that Adolphus Hotel was probably the key control point. That's where all the planners probably met in a secure area. But anyway, Crichton's in charge of the radio communication intelligence part of it. So here's Fair Park, and here's Dealey Plaza. Well, the radio communication system is probably used at Fair Park. I'm just speculating. I don't know. But if I was going to have a secure military frequency, that's where I could go, because that's what they had the equipment. Were there spotters in the kill zone? Absolutely there were. There were probably at least 2 I know of. We have pictures of those guys. But I know there was spotters to signal the guys, hey, target's still up, continue to fire. And this is a photograph from Charles Bronson, not the actor, Charles Bronson. Taken of the motorcade of the president's limousines on Elm Street, and it's approaching these 2 guys. There's the Newmans, Beverly Oliver, Gene Hill, Charles Brem, Beverly Oliver. These are my spotters right here. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know how often a male in 1963 would carry an umbrella on a sunny day, but this guy was. And it was only probably for signaling. I mean, what stands out on a nice bright sunny day but a black umbrella or black something contrasting to the brightness? Black would be standing out. Here's my other spotter. I think these guys were spotting for 2 different teams. One team was watching this guy and another team was watching this guy. Here they are.
Now, remember I mentioned these guys, and they're in the Dealey Plaza UK website. Hold on one second. All right, so here we are again. This is probably one of the best photos here. So you see, there's the umbrella man. He's standing by the Simmons Freeway sign. So Kennedy is about to get hit right there. And so this guy would be really good for one of the grassy knoll shooters to let them know that Kennedy is in the kill zone now. You see how they've got this box right here? This is a perfect box for any shooter. Maybe you can see the shooter right there. This is another signal man for someone up in the Daltex building. You see in this, hold on one second. You see in this one here, see he's got his arm raised. That means he's in the kill zone. Okay. So he could be saying he's waving, but no. He's raising his arm, not at Kennedy, but for the the guy at the shooters at the Dowtex building that show them that Kennedy is in the kill zone now. Okay, and here's the thing also about distances and angles, that things look different from a distance, and you don't know exactly if a person is in the area where you want him to be or not, unless you have some kind of spotter, someone to let you know that. Okay, so that's what this guy is doing. This guy is spotting for the grassy knoll. This guy is spotting for the Dowtex building. They'll also show him, let's see, hold on one second. So they show him here. There's this guy here. So he's gone. This guy has moved from here, folded up his umbrella, and just sat down on the curb. Not even the curb of the road, but the curb by the sidewalk. This guy has come over to him and sat down, like they're together. Okay? This guy's definitely Cuban. Now you can see, like I said, so this guy went over here and sat down. This guy moved all the way over here and sat down. Everyone else was diving for cover. Everyone else was laying on the ground. But these guys just walk over and sit down on the curb. Other people were running towards that direction. So you have basically two groups of people doing two different actions. People that were laying down on the ground because shots were being fired over them. Then you had other groups, actually there's three, other groups of people that are running up the knoll because they heard shots coming this way. Then you had other groups of people walking back this way to go to their office to get out of the way. Then you had these two guys doing none of those things, just walking over and sitting down. They're sitting down to provide communication, to let people know that the shooters are trying to escape. That, yeah, there's a group coming towards you right now. You know, might want to move a little quicker. I'll show you real quick here. We'll go through these after shots here. See? These are people running for the grassy knoll. These are people running for the grassy knoll. They're hearing shots. Look, you see all these people? They're all running, looking or running for the grassy knoll. Nobody's looking this way. Why is that? If the shots all came from the third floor, the school book depository, why isn't anyone looking that way? No one is. See, here's the shot from the sixth floor, the Texas School Book Depository, to get them looking that way. You can see the cops and Clint Hill is looking at Kennedy. Kennedy's got his arm up there. Let's see. Hold on one second. See, here's some more. They're laying down because the shots were coming across above them. These people are laying down because the shots are coming from the third floor. The policeman's stopping his motorcycle. He's about to run that way. There's a policeman running towards the grassy knoll. You see, these people are sitting down or laying down because the shots are coming over their heads. There's the policeman. People are looking in this direction. Here's your spotters again. They're sitting down. And I wonder who that guy is. Always wondered who that guy is right there. Okay, I think, yeah, and that's about it on those. Okay, so we'll get back into it here.
They're not moving. They know what happened. They saw it. They were part of it. Nobody even looks at these guys like they would know something. You know, I wasn't the best, most smartest cop ever to come out of the police academy, but if I roll up on this scene and I see people running, I'm not going to chase you for your statement, but I'm going to walk up to these guys. Hey, while you're sitting down, tell me what you saw, what you heard, what you smelled, what you know. Nobody ever asked these. We don't know. 62 days, 60 years later, we still don't know who these guys are. But I think they're players. They're looking like, what's going on? Okay, these guys are going to...
I mean, look at this guy. He's obviously got something right here. Some kind of radio communication. Maybe it's a clicker. He's clicking on it. 2 clicks for all clear. 1 click for not clear. 3 clicks for hold your ground, safe position. 4 clicks for move out. Something's not right with these 2 guys. They're the only ones sitting down like that and observing. Everyone else is looking in that direction. Why are they like that? Very strange.
We think this guy has the radio. In fact, there's a good picture of him holding something to his face. It looks like an antenna.
See, there you go.
I think they were communicating. They were told what to do, when to leave, which way to go. Was the kill zone marked? Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to get back into Wesley Frazier's statement. That's a good little 30 minutes of his video there. And we'll get back into Wesley Frazier's statement. All right, here we go. So, did he tell you he had been to Russia? Say anything about that? Well, I say we were talking about, one time talking about the service. And so I asked him, had he ever been overseas? And he said he had. And I asked him if he had been to Germany. And he said he'd been through there. So most times times when boys are in the service in the United States, they either go to Japan, or I say they either go over there, or go to some of these, say like Germany or France, somewhere like that. And so other than that, he told me he had been through there. Did he... Wesley, I don't know how that's very strange the way he speaks. Anyway, did he say he had been to Russia? He said, like I say, he said he'd been over there, and he said he had been there. So I thought, when he told me yes, he had, so I thought maybe, by being, I know he told me he had been in the service, and thought maybe that is how he got in. Wow. So even Wesley's thinking that maybe he went to Russia for the military. In other words, your answer is yes. He did tell you he had been in Russia. And see, that kind of makes Mr. Ball nervous. He has to clarify that yes, he did say he'd been to Russia. Right. Did he ever go into detail and tell you how he got there and what he did there? No, he didn't. To be frank with you, I was more interested about France and Germany and asked him about them towns. And he told me he liked France. I mean, he said not that he didn't like France. He said the people in France was more the kind to con the United States boys out of their money. And he was in Germany there 2 or 3 days, and he said he liked Germany better than France because that is one reason. Because he said if he didn't really know how to count that French money, them French guys would really take you. Wow. Did he say anything about being in the Marines? See, Oswald goes into more detail about getting conned from his money in France. He'd only been there a couple of days. Was only in France a couple of days. Then he talks about the 2 to 3 years he was in Russia. Very strange. Anyway, did he say anything about being in the Marines? Yes, he told me he was a Marine. That he had been in Japan. No, sir, he didn't say he had been to Japan. Ever talk about politics? So, if Wesley is saying that most of these guys go to Japan, why wouldn't he ask him, being a Marine, and there's a huge Marine presence in Japan, why wouldn't he say, well, did you ever go to Japan? You went to Germany and France. Did you ever go to Japan? Very strange. Ever talk about politics? No, sir, he didn't. And then ever mention any subjects like political parties, the Democrats, Republicans? No, sir, he didn't. Ever mention anything about communists, Marxists, or any of the words like that did he use? No, sir. And then they switch topics and go into his wife. Now, if Warren Commission's whole case is that Oswald is this Marxist, crazy Marxist revolutionary, and that he's gone. Remember, I told you there's the steps where people think about something, they read about something, they start thinking more about it, and maybe join an organization. They start advocating to their friends and family, and then they start advocating on the street, and maybe nowadays on the internet to other people, and then they take even, a very, very small minority, take even more extreme measures by committing political violence. So they're saying that Oswald went through all those steps, okay, all the way to the point of political violence, all the way to the point of, if Oswald was advocating for Marxism in Cuba and communism in New Orleans and passing out flyers, getting into fights, going to jail, getting on the radio, getting on TV, but now he comes to Texas and he doesn't even talk anything with the guy he's riding the truck with, or the car with every week. Why not? Frazier's a nobody. It's not like he's going to get in trouble or get fired or get reported to the police. Frazier's a nobody. He's an influential kid. Actually, Frazier's younger than him. Why not, start advocating for labor unions and communism? And hey, it's unfair. We only get paid $1.25 an hour, and they're only temps, and we should organize a union. He never advocates. Isn't that strange? Your whole thesis for the Warren Report is that he's advocating Marxist revolutionary willing to commit murder to further his cause, but he doesn't even express anything about communism or Marxism to his co-workers or to the guy he's riding back and forth with. But when you read the statements, and we're going to get into that, of the other Russians and the Mornshield in Dallas, he's advocating and reading about Marxism and advocating against capitalism, but no one else. Only the Russians, the white anti-Marxist, anti-communist Russians, is he doing that. But with Frazier, it's, how's the weather, Frazier? I don't know, man. How them babies doing? Oh, them babies are doing good. I got one on the way, and I got one that's in diapers, and oh yeah, and the weather's really nice today, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good day to go shoot the president, isn't it? Oh yeah, it is. Come on. It doesn't make any sense. So, to me, that either says that Frazier's lying and trying to cover his ass, that, Oswald was trying to recruit me, Oswald was a raving lunatic, Marxist, and I should have told somebody long before, but I didn't do it, so I'm going to cover my ass and say he never talked about that. He just talked about his kids and talked about the weather. Or Oswald was playing a mission, a game, and Frazier was a nobody not to be involved in the game. With the Marxists with the other Russians, this is my theory, is that Oswald was on a mission still, even though he was back from Russia, with the right-wing groups and maybe even the government, to ferret out Russian communist sympathizers in Dallas. So he advocated for communism, he advocated for Marxism, he advocated for Cuba amongst them to fear out any sympathizers, and then he could report them to whoever he's reporting to. Okay? But he never advocates for no one else, and he's just playing his mission. Don't talk about communism, don't talk about Marxism among anyone else that's not who you're assigned to investigate. That's my theory. I could be wrong, but who knows? But like I said, it doesn't make much sense if you're thinking the whole Warren Commission's case is that is that Oswald is this lone nut revolutionary communists advocating and then going one step further into political violence. And he does all this stuff in New Orleans, but when he's in Dallas, he does nothing except, he does no advocating except when it comes to the Russians in Dallas, the white Russians. Anyway. Did he ever talk to you about his wife? No, sir, he didn't. I said, he just a guy who didn't talk very much at all. But he talks about his kids, and he talks, although he has one kid and one on the way, but he doesn't talk about his wife. Oh, well, how'd you meet your wife? You met her in Russia? Does she speak English? You know, y'all speak Russian or English when y'all talking together? I mean, come on. Come on, Frazier. Doesn't make any sense. Right. Did you pack your lunch from home? Yes, sir. I always took lunch. Do you remember whether or not Oswald came back with you on any Monday morning or any weekend? Did he pack his lunch? Yes, sir, he did. He did? Yes, sir. When he rode with me, I say he always brought lunch except that one day on November 22nd, he didn't bring his lunch that day. But every other day, he brought his lunch. Right. When he rode with me, would he bring it in a paper sack or what kind of container? Yes, sir. Like a little paper sack you get out of the grocery store. Have you ever seen these little old sacks that you could buy a sandwich bag sack? Did you carry your lunch in a paper sack? Yes, I did. There's a lunchroom in the Texas School Book Depository? Yes, sir. Is that on the first floor? No, sir, on the second floor. There's some kind of recreation room on the first floor. There's a little domino room there where some of the guys go and play dominoes. But the lunchroom is on the second floor. Right? Right. Do you sell any food there? Now here's another thing I just thought of. Oswald is the only one confronted in the second floor lunchroom. There were other people in the domino room, but no one else was there. Everyone else was standing out front. Very interesting. No, sir, they don't. About all they sell in the lunchroom is different types of soft drinks. And then near the window with me, who work in the offices, they have coffee there. You can drink coffee up there. I never did. Then they have an assortment of cookies and candies and peanuts and so forth on the machines there. That's all about they have. You remember whether or not Oswald packed his lunch, brought his lunch on other days, the days he didn't ride with you? To be frank with you, I don't know whether he brought his lunch, because I will tell you one way. Some guys bring the lunch there and some guys buy it there because we have a catering service, you see. Comes around 10 o'clock, the man comes around and several of the boys there go out there and buy their lunch from the catering service. So what he's talking about is a food truck that pulls up front. People come out, they buy their lunch, and then the food truck takes off. Then later at 11:45, 12 o'clock is when we always eat lunch. 12 to 12:45, right. And that's not exactly correct, because there's other people that went to lunch at 11:45, and we'll read their statements. When you get off your job, did you usually go to the lunchroom on the second floor to eat your lunch? No, sir. Most of the time I don't. Most of the time you see several of those guys sitting down at our own table, and we just sit there. I say we always go up there to get something to drink, and I say we ate up there several times, but most of the times I eat with the guys I work with. Usually we sit down and eat, we lay down on the big tables, and there's sometimes talk or go to sleep. That's on the first floor? Right. So he just said earlier that everyone eats lunch on the second floor. But now he's saying they're eating on the first floor. I guess this is the domino room? Anyway. Did you notice where Oswald had his lunch usually? No, sir, I didn't. I say we have a refrigerator there. Some of the boys put their lunches in there. Did you ever eat lunch with Oswald? No, sir, I never have. Did you ever see him eating lunch? No, sir, I never have seen him eat lunch, and I have seen him go to the Dr. Pepper machine by the refrigerator and get a Dr. Pepper, but I've never have seen him, you might say, sit right down to eat his lunch. So he doesn't know where Oswald eats his lunch. So Oswald's eating on the second floor his lunch. So doesn't it make sense that if Oswald is usually eating his lunch on the second floor, that on the day of the assassination, when the policeman rushes up the stairs to the second floor lunchrooms and sees Oswald in there drinking a Coke or carrying a Coke, doesn't that make sense? That's what Oswald usually would be doing. Anyway, in driving back and forth with Oswald, did you ever hear him? Did he ever talk about guns? No, sir, he never did. Did he ever tell you he owned a gun? No, sir. Did Oswald ever say anything to you about buying an automobile in any of these trips? One time we were talking about it. He said he thought he would just buy an old car, like mine. I say most models like that you can get from pretty cheap, and as far as going back and forth for work, that is about all they are good for. You don't need a new car to be used to go back and forth. You don't need it unless you drive a good sized distance, but that is said long run. He planned to buy one, but not so far as I ever knew that he ever did. Anyway, make this a little bigger here. Alright, let's see, Dr. Pepper machine. So this is all just interesting BS. So what they're getting here about the car is I think it's called Wesley Ford, where Oswald lookalike was spotted and test drove a car. Let's see. Hold on one second. So on the 21st, Oswald comes up to Frazier and says, this is on a Thursday, could I ride home with you this afternoon? And I said, sure, like I told you, you can come home with me anytime you want. Like I say, anytime you want to see your wife, that is all right with me. So automatically, I knew it wasn't Friday. I come to think it wasn't Friday, and I said, why are you going home today? And he says, I'm going home to get curtain rods, he said, put in an apartment. He wanted to hang up some curtains, and I said, well, very well, and never thought more about it. And I had invoices in my hands for some orders, and I walked off and started filling the orders. So this is one of the things I said that makes Oswald look guilty, because he's riding home on a day that he usually doesn't. Anyway, keep going. Then they go over again how Oswald came over, looked in the kitchen window at 7:15. Now this makes perfect sense if you think about it. If Oswald got up late, which again, you got to wonder, if you're going to kill the President of the United States, why would you be late to your own assassination attempt? It's your big day. It's your day to, kill the President, the capitalist stooge, and make your mark in history. But you sleep late? The most important date in all your life? Doesn't make much sense. Anyway, so he came over, poked his head in the window to see if Frazier was still there. Alright, so here we go. We're going over this again. When you got in the car, did you say anything to him, or did he say anything to you? Let's see. When I got in the car, I have a kind of habit of glancing over my shoulder, and so at that time, I noticed there was a package laying on the back seat. I didn't pay too much attention, and I said, what's the package, Lee? And he said, curtain rods. And I said, oh yes, you told me you was going to bring some today. That is the main reason he was going over there that Thursday afternoon when he was to bring back curtain rods. So I didn't think anything more about it when he told me that. My question is, curtain rods can wait one day, can't they? We could have gone in on Friday as usual and then brought the curtain rods back on Sunday. What's so important about bringing curtain rods back? Anyway. And then he says, how much of the back seat, how much space did it take up? I would say roughly 2 feet of the seat. Now this would be very, very easy to measure, because if you think about it, if it's laying over the back seat, now you've got to measure. A lot of these seats have lines in them. All you have to do is take a tape measure and put it where you thought the right side of the package was, and then push it over to about where you thought the left side of the package was, and then you'd have a measurement. And he says it's 5 to 6 inches wide. And in this section he talks about how Oswald put the package under his arm. He didn't think it was heavy. He didn't pay much attention to it. It's funny how Frazier doesn't pay much attention to anything, he says, but is able to give quite a bit of detail about things he didn't pay much attention to. Quite interesting. This one's interesting because in his first statement and then his previous other statements, it says, now this day did you see Oswald the rest of the morning? Yes, sir. I saw him back and forth, the morning walking around, filling books and so forth, filling orders, had his invoice filling orders. So he says here that he saw him. Interesting. Here's another one that's pretty interesting. Did you see the president go by? Yes, sir, I did. Did you hear anything? Well, I say just right after he went by, he hadn't hardly got by, I heard a sound. And if you have ever been around motorcycles, you know how they backfire. And so I thought one of the motorcycles backfired because right before this car came by, now there were several of these motorcycle policemen, and they got off down towards the underpass down there, and so I thought, one of the motorcycles backfired, but it wasn't just a few seconds that, I heard 2 more of the same type, sounds, and by the time people were running everywhere and falling down and screaming, and naturally then I knew something was wrong. And so I come to the conclusion that somebody was shooting at somebody, and I figured it was him. I figured it was who? I figured it was somebody shooting at President Kennedy because people were running and hollering, so I just stood still. I've always been taught when something like that happened or anywhere, it's best to stand still, because if you run, it makes you look guilty. Sure enough. Now then, did you have any questions at the time as to the direction of the sound came? Now, I don't know if he says it later here, but he actually, in other testimony, said that he didn't stand still, that he moved out onto Elm and actually went west on Elm towards the picket fence with Billy Lovelady. Now then, did you ever have the impression at the time as to the direction of the sound came? Well, to be frank with you, I thought it came from down there, where the underpass is. There's a series of quite a few number of them railroad tracks running together, and from there where I was standing, it sounded like it was coming from down the railroad tracks there. So the picket fence area is what he's saying, folks. Were you able to see the president? Could you still see the president's car when you heard the first sound? No, sir, I couldn't. From there, people were standing out on the curb, and it drops, and the ground drops off there. It goes down an underpass. I couldn't see because people were standing up there in my way. But however, when he did turn that corner there wasn't anybody standing there in the street, and you could see good there. But after you got on the pass down there, you couldn't see anything. You didn't see the president's car at any time you heard the sound? No, sir, I didn't. But you stood right there, did you? Right. Stood right where I was, and Mr. Shelley was standing there, right? And also Billy Lovelady? Yes, sir. And the three of you didn't go anyplace. I believe Billy and them walked down towards that direction, but I didn't. I just stood there where I was. I hadn't moved at all. Did you see anybody after that come into the building while you were there? You mean somebody other than that didn't work there? A police officer? No, sir. I stood there a few minutes, and some people who worked there, normally started coming back into the building because a lot of us eat lunch, and so we stared back into the building, maybe saying started back into the building, and it wasn't just a few minutes, but there was a lot of police officers and so forth all over the building there. Then you went back into the building, did you? So, see, he's saying it's a couple of minutes before a police officer even showed up in the building, yet you've got testimony of one police officer saying it took him 90 seconds to get in the building. So something's not right there. And before you went back into the building, no police officers came up the steps into the building? Not that I know. They could walk by the way, and I was standing there talking to somebody else and didn't see it. Did anybody say anything about what happened? Did you hear anybody say anything about the president being shot? Yes, sir. Right before I went back, some girl who had walked down a little further where I was standing on the steps, and somebody came back and said somebody had shot the president. Do you know who told you that, sir? Do you know who the girl was that told you that? She didn't tell me right directly, but she came back in more or less in a low kind of hollering. She just told several people. Then you went right back into the building, did you? Right. And police officers came in there? Yes, sir. I would say by the time, some of us went back in, and it wasn't just a few minutes. I say there were several. Did you stay on the first floor? Well, stayed on the first floor there a few minutes, and I hadn't eaten my lunch, so I had my lunch down there in the basement, and I went down there to get my lunch and eat, and I walked back up to the first floor there. When you came back into the building, you came into the front door, didn't you? Right. Did you go down to the basement immediately, or did you stand around the first floor? No, sir. I stood around for several minutes there, and then, eventually the ones who hadn't eaten the lunch, some of them had taken the lunch outside. Did other people go downstairs with you? No, sir, they didn't. You went down alone, did you? Yes, sir. Did you go at any time in the back of the building, back near the door to the loading dock? No, sir, I never did. Perhaps I'd better ask you to point on the map where you were. Come over here, please, okay? You came into the building? Right. Tell us where you went and what you did. Well, like I said, I came back through there, indicating the commission exhibit, the first floor. By coming back through there, you mean you came down the hallway and into the entrance of the first floor warehouse? Right. And you come by Shelley's office. That is the counter right there. After you get in, you get off here. That is the office. Anyway, right out, I come out right here, where several of the people walking around here. That is the bin area. No, sir, the bins don't automatically right up here. I say there's a little more or less a hall through here. But anyway, I say you have 2 or 3 bins. Through here, you mean there's a lot of hall after you enter the warehouse? Okay, so most of this is worthless here. So, if the commission lawyers had spent more time on narrowing down information and locking that down instead of all this other additional BS about where people went to school and where their mom was from and all this other crap, they could have solved this. But now they go on for a couple more pages on just total nonsense. Trying to iron out where he had his lunch. Before you left, did you look for Oswald to see about taking him home? No. Was there a reason why you didn't? Yes, sir. I did because, like I told you, he was going to get curtain rods and asked him at the time, and he said the same time that he wasn't going to be going home. Alright, so he's not saying that he saw or heard about Oswald. Now this is interesting because the commission is saying that this gray-blue jacket is Oswald's. It was found in the domino room. Do you recognize this jacket? Frazier, no. No, sir, I don't. I don't. Did you ever see Oswald wear this jacket? No, sir, I don't believe I have. No, sir, I don't believe I have because most of the time I notice when Oswald had it, I'd say he put off his shirt and just wear a t-shirt the biggest part of the time, so really wore a shirt, didn't pay enough attention. So this is interesting because if the commission is trying to say the reason why Oswald left the jacket is because he was rushing to get out of the building to escape the police, here's Frazier saying that Oswald never wore that jacket. He never saw him wear that jacket. Okay? Which, don't you think is kind of odd if you're riding in a car with someone that you don't notice their clothing? You don't notice if they're wearing a jacket or not? Very strange. On that day, did you notice one article of clothing? That is, he had a jacket. Yes, sir. The color, what color was the jacket? It was gray, more or less flannel, wool-like looking type jacket that I had seen him wear, and that is the type of jacket he had on that morning. Did it have a zipper on it? Yes, sir. Wow. So Frazier just blew them away and said, no, it wasn't the gray-blue jacket, it was a gray flannel jacket. And that's not it that you found in the domino room. Interesting. Again, that's their case, that Oswald committed the assassination and was in a hurry to get out, that he left his jacket. And again, he makes this statement, to be frank, I didn't notice much about the jacket. He didn't notice much about anything, but he can definitely say yes or no when they ask him certain questions. Very interesting. Then the commission says, take a look at this paper bag, which is Commission Exhibit 364 for identification, with reference to the width. Was the bag about the width or a different width? Well, I would say it appears to me to be pretty close, but it might be just a little bit too wide. I think it is because, you know, yourself, you would have had a big hand and that size, cupped it, glanced where it was walking up ahead. This is another bag that was marked Exhibit 142. Wow, there's another bag. But I don't see the stamp on it. This is FBI number 10. This was shown to you before, wasn't it, in Dallas? Yes, sir. You were asked if you had seen this before, weren't you? Yes, sir, I was. When you first saw it, felt the bag was a different size color. Different color, didn't you? Right, and I say they told me this one had been treated in the lab. If you will note, there is a part of the bag which has not been treated. Wow, okay. Alright, so we're going to stop there and continue with this interesting, probably one of the most important testimonies of all the testimonies. But anyway, we'll keep going. Because this is how the Warren Commission is building their case. That Wesley, if you ignore all the other exceptions that Wesley puts into it, you can easily see how the Warren Commission says, oh, Wesley Frazier says that Oswald, brought the paper sack, and we're saying it contained the gun, and then brought the gun to the Texas School Book Depository. He went on a day back home on a Thursday instead of a Friday, and that Oswald, trying to escape from the police, left his gray jacket there, and Wesley's saying it's a different jacket. My question also is, why would Oswald go straight out the front door? If there's a back loading dock, would it make sense to escape out the back loading docks, especially if you know that there are police already entering the building? You've been confronted by a policeman already. It's nothing to go down one more flight of stairs and then out the back door. You're free. Doesn't make much sense. Anyway, so that's it for now.